from the Wiley Vision studio in Spokane, Washington. The Stephen James Wiley Show.
Oh, dude. Michael Knott. Michael Knott. Christian rock, Christian punk. I mentioned in the last episode Adam again, and it just sparked. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I grew up on Christian music. Welcome to the Stephen James Wiley Show, by the way. That was Michael Knott. The song is called Cool. It's off of his record called Fluid. From the year, I don't know, because Apple Music doesn't tell me, because they suck. But I was, the Adam Again thing yesterday, I've wanted to talk more about this music, because I grew up listening to Christian music. And that was because my parents were trying to protect me from, some of the darker shit in the world. And at the same time, I was passionate about music. Like, obsessed. And me and my friends, we connected early high school, late junior high, when we started discovering these Christian rock bands, because we were pretty sheltered, right? I mean, and so, is my phone making noises? The nerve. Doesn't it know what I'm doing? We didn't know a lot of, I listened to Sandy Patty with my mom. My mom was the worship director at our church. So, I grew up like super charismatic Christian dude. And so to be introduced to bands at age 13, like Whiteheart, Allies, and then to my mom's disappointment, some high school guys at church saw her at the Christian Gift Center, Christian bookstore, right, where they had Christian music. It's the only place you could buy it, because they didn't sell it at, normal record stores. And she's like, what would Steven like, and they're like, oh, here, check this out. So they introduced, she bought me a couple Christian heavy metal records, Holy Soldier and Angelica. I don't know if she bought me it. I think a friend lent it to me. But anyhow, Angelica, which is hard to find Angelica. But they were awesome. They had a song called Danger Zone. It was badass. And she was so not happy that she bought these for me once she realized what kind of music it was. But she bought it for me. She couldn't, take it back. I mean, she did sell all my G.I. Joes and He-Man toys because she thought they were demonic. But she felt bad about that later. So she didn't get rid of these records, though. And it blew my mind. So I'm hearing Whiteheart Freedom. I'm hearing Whiteheart Powerhouse, Holy Soldier's original self-titled record, and then their Last Train record. And then they didn't do another record. They got a new frontman later and did this whole other thing. And it was actually good. But I was obsessed. I knew, this is back when you could read album credits and figure out who played on records. And you learned, oh, here's this band, but they didn't play all the instruments on these songs because that's how records are still made. But because of streaming and digital, you don't know who did what on anything. You don't know who produced a song. And half the pop songs or more are produced by like 7 or 15 people. It's honestly ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. Anyhow, so Michael Knott is his own story. And in 1995, let's cross-check that, cross-reference it here. 1994, he released a record called Rocket and a Bomb. Fluid came out in 1995, and Strip Cycle came out in 1995. So he was a part of the whole Christian alternative rock scene that was happening at the same time that like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains were getting huge. This was all happening. Most of it was coming out of Southern California and Seattle. So you had Poor Old Lou, Soul Food 76, Magnified Plaid, otherwise known as MXPX, and then Grandma Train. Those are all Seattle bands. And then you had LSU, or Lifesavers Underground, which was Michael Knott's band. You had Michael Knott, his solo work. He also had a band called the Aunt Betty's. You had the Prayer Chain, Dig Jesus, and then just a crap load of bands that had like 1 or 2 records. You know, they were small. And so today I wanted to highlight Michael Knott because he was a creative genius, a freak. He was Hunter S. Thompson and Elvis, and nobody really knows much about his story. And he loved God, and he was a Christian, but he also was completely outside the box, had no problem calling bullshit and hypocrisy, and that was kind of, maybe you could say, what his life ended up being about. But I wanted to read just a little bit about his life, and then maybe I'll share just a couple clips of some songs that were so great that he did, because his music impacted me a lot in that it acknowledged sadness, it acknowledged disillusionment, it acknowledged brokenness. And most of Christian music was all about like celebrating the up and focusing on good, which is not necessarily a bad thing at all. But there is the other side of the coin. And as a result, Michael Knott and a lot of these other bands were not widely accepted onto Christian radio or Christian rock radio, etc., except for like late night Friday night shows, which I used to listen to because that was where you got to hear the bands you liked on the radio, which was a thing. Totally hard for a lot of people to even remember what that's like, but I remember it, and it was kind of fucking cool. So Michael Knott was involved, and I didn't even realize how involved he was with stuff that I grew up with. I didn't realize the extent. And he passed away March 12th of last year, 2024. So I want to read a little bit about his life because it's outstanding, and then maybe play a couple clips of just some tunes and kind of celebrate what he did, because it mattered, and I don't know that he ever knew it mattered. But hopefully, when he crossed over and left his body behind, he got to feel like he did something, contributed something, and maybe he saw me in the thousands of faces who experienced his spark, his little light of God that impacted people's lives. So, and I want to dive into other records too, but I was researching this concept for today's show, and then I was like, man, I'm just gonna focus on Michael. Like it's something. So I'll just read a little bit. Michael Gerard Knott, born December 22nd, 1962, and died March 12th, 2024. He was an American singer, songwriter, and the frontman of various bands, of whom performed in the Christian rock genre. He released about 35 albums, including solo albums and albums with bands such as LSU and Kush. He's been credited for pioneering the alternative rock scene. He was born in Aurora, Illinois. His music has sometimes been controversial in Christian circles, particularly due to the use of profanity. In the song Rocket and a Bomb, which is an amazing song, from the self-titled release of his former band, the Aunt Betty's, but he released that song before the Aunt Betty's record, just FYI. And his original artwork showing Jesus Christ as a bartender. I never saw that, but I want that. His songwriting appealed to a lot of people, particularly Christians who could admit their flaws and who appreciated the honesty with which he tackled his own shortcomings. Examples including Double, Shaded Pain, and the aforementioned Rocket and a Bomb. He explained some of his views in an interview with HM Magazine, Heaven's Metal Magazine. I used to read it. Basically, his quote says, "Basically, I'm a human being and I believe in Christ, period. It doesn't make my life rosy. It doesn't make my life terrible. It doesn't do anything with that. I know Christ. Not," that's his quote. I like it. "Not who emerged from Southern California's Christian punk scene also fancied himself as a punk Elvis." And who doesn't love Elvis, man? Shit. Okay, 1987, Knott released the album Shaded Pain, notably contained lyrics which challenged church morality and abusive church leaders. The album was banned from Christian bookstores, one of the few places where Christian albums could actually be purchased at the time. Knott was banned from performing in various churches. His career highlights include LSU's Cornerstone appearance in 1993 when the band dressed in costumes, the Aunt Betty's record label bidding war, and eventually signing with Elektra Records in 1995. That was a big deal. And then the label changed people took over the label and nobody promoted their record. Nobody ever knew the record came out. It's so sad. There's a lot here. I'm not going to read all of it, but Knott was the founder of the now defunct independent record label called Blonde Vinyl Records. I didn't actually realize that. He co-founded Tooth and Nail Records with Brandon Ebel. Tooth and Nail is a story unto itself. It's been covered extensively in a podcast. Look it up. There's a whole podcast dedicated to the stories of Tooth and Nail. It's really cool. He co-founded that with Brandon Ebel, who's a very ambitious guy who went on to do a lot of stuff in music, made pretty good money doing it, and built up an amazing thing with Tooth and Nail Records. And he worked with all these other guys, Michael Rowe, Derry Doherty, just a ton of stuff. And his solo work, if you want to look it up, it's under Mike Knott and Michael Knott. And it's something special, man. And I just want to point the song "Cool" that I opened the show with here. It's actually my favorite song off the Fluid record, which is probably my least favorite of his solo records. "Rocket and a Bomb," his solo record from 1994, is one of the best records of that era. There is not one bad song. There's not one song that I don't resonate with on that. Jan the Weatherman, timeless. Jail, amazing. Make Me Feel Good. I used to listen to that song over and over when I was depressed, and I was depressed a lot. Serious, good tune. John Barrymore Jr. I still sing that song randomly. It's so catchy. Drinking beer from a bowl. Train, beautiful. Bubbles, amazing story. And then Rocket and a Bomb is like the perfect ending. Strip Cycle is an acoustic punk record. Some say it's kind of an ode to the Violent Femmes. I didn't listen to a lot of their music because it was secular. Duh. Sugar Mama, great tune. Milk and Peas was the song I would listen to. It was weird and beautiful, and sad. And then Supergirl, great song. Supergirl. And then the LSU record, which I'm going to find that. I highly recommend. Look it up. It is, oh, dude. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Grace Shaker, 1994. Go find it if you can. Double is the track that's known for off this, because it's. I mean, Michael Knott was an alcoholic. He drank. He may have drank himself to death. I don't know, or from complications of just boozing it hard. Acquaintance, who I love his music. I can't remember it. There's so many names. Man, I saw him live. He came to Spokane and played a small show. It was so cool, and he knew Michael Knott. His name is eluding me. Well, anyhow, if I remember it. But he said he knew Michael. They were good friends, but he said Michael drank a ton. Like a ton. Chris Lizotte. Great bluesy voice. He and Double is about that. It's just a barroom scene. It's amazing. It's an amazing song. Also, the song Freedom off that record is amazing. And Christ Saves. Freaking dope tune. Can't say enough about that. So, it's hard. It's almost emotional. If I'm dead honest. What this guy's life meant to me. And, he has no way of knowing that. It's fascinating. But I think what I'll do is I'm going to read this last piece. It was an NPR piece that celebrated his life after he passed away last year. And then I'll just play a song going out. I'll pull something out of my iTunes here. But Michael Knott. This was written by Lars Gottrich, and he did a hell of a job on this piece. Michael Knott, who changed the course of Christian rock, dies at 61. An entire industry wouldn't exist without him, yet few know his name. Michael Knott, a brash and brilliant pioneer of the alternative Christian rock scene who challenged the faithful to examine their faults and hypocrisies, died Tuesday. Knott's cause of death is currently unknown. He was 61. To me, Michael Knott was larger than life, wrote Stormy Fraser, his daughter, in a statement. He was kind, empathetic. He was a kind, empathetic father and creative genius. There is so much to say about him, so much more to write, but in this time of shock and profound grief, I cannot list all that he did, all that he meant to us. I can only say I love him so much that it hurts. It is difficult to accept that someone with so much of my heart has left this earth. Born December 22nd, 1962, Knott came out of Southern California's Christian punk scene of the early 1980s, at first joining the ministry-oriented band The Lifesavers before essentially taking over and renaming the project by the decade's end. Like much of the music coming out of Los Angeles and its surrounding beach towns, his LS Underground band wrote groove-heavy, funk-tinged, flange-full alternative rock. Think Jane's Addiction and Red Hot Chili Peppers, with a gothic flair and a charismatic frontman who fancied himself a punk Elvis. The band's 1987 album, Shaded Pain, was a haunting and often hopeless meditation on mortality, abusive church leaders, and the sins of the flesh. Our time has come. Let's kiss the cleaver. Knott threatens on our time is come, calling out false idols. Your God is dead. Our God will never leave us. Christian bookstores, then one of the few places where Christian records could be bought, banned Shaded Pain. Churches, too, banned Knott from performing following the album's release, foreshadowing many such clashes to come. Still, those setbacks didn't deter Knott from bum-rushing Christian contemporary music once again. CCM is a catch-all term for faith-based music in popular formats beyond gospel and hymns. Back then, anything fringe, like punk and electronic music, was still new ground for this traditional industry. Knott founded his own label, Blonde Vinyl, in 1991, made a wild gambit, releasing 10 albums at once with the aim of purposely oversaturating the market. The only requirement for a band to get signed to Blonde Vinyl is they had to be musically off the grid. Knott shared in the liner notes of a recent issue of LS Underground's The Great Prophet. Breakfast with Amy has go-go dancers at their live shows? Perfect. I'll sign those guys. If there was a band out there, I didn't care if it was techno, I didn't care if it was punk, and they were musically off the grid, I was interested. His gamble worked. Christian teens and 20-somethings suddenly had a trusted source for music that was cool, weird, and heavy. and their parents would approve. Through Blonde Vinyl, Knott gave himself and others permission to be real about faith and art, confronting both while entangled in the messy business of mixing them with commerce. The label went bust just a few years after when its distributor went bankrupt. Still, if not for Blonde Vinyl, there would be no Tooth and Nail Records, the game-changing label that was originally conceived as a joint venture between Knott and the company's leader, to this day, Brandon Ebel. Tooth and Nail altered the course of Christian rock industry by launching and legitimizing the careers of MXPX, Supertones, Under Oath. Ultimately, Knott bowed out of the collaboration, but did release one album of his own on Tooth and Nail, 1995's Strip Cycle, a surreal acoustic punk album indebted to the Violent Femmes. Knott had his brushes with the mainstream. He signed a record deal with Elektra Records with his band the Aunt Bettys, and much later auditioned to front the band that would become the Velvet Revolver, a 2000 supergroup spun off from Guns N' Roses. Who became the lead singer of that? Scott Weiland. But from the 90s on, he mostly released albums under his own name, recordings that confronted his demons with both bombast and quiet, fervent spirit. He was known to be confrontational, burning bridges with labels faster than his prolific songwriting could keep up with. He publicly struggled with alcoholism, unflinchingly documented on Double. A man after God's own heart is not welcome in the Christian industry, he said, laughing in a 1998 interview. I think that the fault belongs to American Christianity. It is cultural. Everyone runs away from drinking and smoking, experiencing and living life. They end up being extremely disturbed, and they lose all their faith and have no hope in the end. In 2001's Life of David, Knott took on a well-known Bible character in the Old Testament psalmist, David. Knott found a tortured and tangled portrait of grace and perhaps saw himself. On the album's devastating Chameleon, he sings, I am the adulteress and the penitent man. I am the cunning culprit and the little lamb. I love all God's children, all but one, this chameleon. In the eyes of those who loved his work, Michael Knott understood better than most that grace isn't for the beloved, but for the broken. Pretty stinking beautiful, man. Well, I think I'm going to leave you with a song from Michael. Trying to think of which one I want to do. I think we'll do Rocket and a Bomb. We'll do a clip. We'll fade out with Rocket and a Bomb. That seems appropriate. So there you go. This is a tribute episode to Michael Knott. Rest in peace, brother. I love you.
Mr. In and Mrs. In, can you please tell me what's in? What is wrong with me? I'm never in your company. Mr. Out and Mrs. Out, what is this all about? Before you know it, you've come in. And all I ever wanted was a good job and some bus fare, and a rocket and a bomb. A rocket and a bomb. A rocket. Does she tell you how you should feel? Does she let you